Hello, everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of Get Real with Jack and Cindy. I'm Cindy Morrison.
And I'm Jack Wallace, episode 26.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. And, we've had a few weeks off. We kind of both had some things we had to deal with, including my ringer, I guess.
Oh, I bet it's my computer.
Anyways, but on that subject, we kind of thought we might go into something we haven't talked about in a long time, which is just basically about how we're taking care of ourselves as professionals. We've talked about this NAR thing at over and over, and how we're dealing and struggling and trying to figure it out. And I think the one thing we've kind of gotten lost on is like just as business people who are constantly on call, who are constantly at people's
Back and call.
I mean, and that's part of what we agreed to.
We work nights and weekends.
Yeah, that it's like, what are we doing and what are you doing to really take care of yourself mentally, physically, spiritually? And I just went through some stuff with my mom, who's doing great, but it's hard to go through those things with your parent. I know you've gone some things with your mom, and we're kind of at that age where that's kind of showing up a little bit more, and that's good. I mean, that's where we are. But yeah, I think it's just really important that we discuss this, because the one thing I will say, and I've said this before, so it's not any shocker, but my husband did commit suicide, and he was in this business also. And not saying that as a downer. I just think that it would have been better if we could have communicated more about the struggles he was going through. And this whole premise of the show is get real, and that really came out of a lot of that. I think it was like, after going through all that, and us being friends and talking about kind of how we wanted to deal with that was part of it. Like, let's maybe get real about real estate, but really get real about what we're going through and what we deal with. And I think as professionals of any kind, I don't think it's just real estate.
No,
I think
definitely not.
Anything that you do, it's hard to be human. I mean, it is a difficult thing to be human at times, and it's a beautiful thing. But there's just a lot of things, and I always, people will say, "Oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you," and I appreciate that, but I always say, none of us get out of this life unscathed. We just don't. Like, you're going to go through things. You're going to have seasons. You're going to have things that happen to you. And I think how you deal with that is very important. And
I haven't really talked much about my mom. I have to you off camera. But for those of you who don't know, I moved my mother here a little more than 2 years ago, moved her 3 doors down. Very blessed to have her now in Tulsa instead of Lubbock, Texas, where I grew up. But she fell in March and broke her back in 2 places. So your family, your friends, they're everything to you, no matter what's going on in your professional life, whether it's busy or not. And everything kind of went on hold for me. I was with her entire time in the hospital, every day, never left.
That's so painful.
Yeah. Rehab. I was there every day, but I didn't actually sleep in the same room at that point. Then she went into skilled nursing, and now she's in assisted nursing. And it is a lot. I'm an only child, so it's all on me. My husband's been incredible, but work has been insanely good, which is a great thing, but it's a lot all at the same time. You never know what someone's going through until you're in their shoes.
Yeah. And the hard part about that too. And I'm sorry she's going through that or gone through that. I'm sorry that you're going through all that. I think it's one of those things too, that it's like, if you have young children and you're dealing with all this, you are dealing with all of the activities and the nonstop and the going back and forth and feeling whether you're being a good parent because you're not around enough. If they get older, then you're worried about the life decisions they're making, or we deal with all kinds of forms of addiction and depression and all those, but with ourselves, with others, with our loved ones.
Right.
And then getting into the aging process. I mean, all of that on top of now being your business. And, people really don't want to they don't really care what you're going through in a way. I mean, it's not your business
Doesn't
is
have
to
anything
do their
to do
business, right? But at the
with
same
them, with us buying or selling their property.
absolutely. And there's times too, it's like after John, I will say I threw myself into work. Like that was all I wanted to do because I knew how to do it and it kept my mind going. I also had to worry about whether people would think, oh, is this going to destroy him, take him down? Is he going to be able to do, like all those things? Is he just going to give? So it was kind of a catch-22 between survival instinct and coping mechanism. I don't know whether it was healthy or not, but for me, it worked.
And that's kind of what I've been doing.
Yeah.
I think since once she went into assisted living is, I'm just working all the time.
Keep your mind going. Yeah.
Because that's comfortable to me. And you know me, I mean, almost every day, but at least every week I watch, a social media webinar. I'll watch a real estate webinar, just because it keeps my mind healthy.
Yeah. Well, you know what? To me, it's a lot healthier to do that than it is to pop pills or to, start doing a lot of other things that are not as great coping skills. So, I think it's giving ourselves grace is really important, but also kind of whatever works for you in the moment, you kind of need to do, I mean, I think and you got to keep moving forward.
So. And last week I hit a wall. I mean, it was finally just the emotions of mom, kids and husband, all that are doing great, but it's just, it's a lot. And literally we were going to do our luxury tour and I just hit that wall. I was like, I just need a day in bed, not to do anything, to put on Netflix and get out some popcorn and just have a truly mental health day. And that really helped. I feel like slowly I'm coming back, but I'm glad I was able to just say, no, I got to stop everything right now. This is really important.
I remember one day kind of in the middle of all of what I was doing, where I was working so much after John. And I remember there was a day when I was laying in bed and I was having a day like that. And all of a sudden this image or this thing popped into my head. And do you remember the movie Private Benjamin with Goldie Hawn? There's a great scene where she's in the rain and they've been doing all this stuff. And she's just broken down from basic training. And she goes, I want to be normal. I want to go to lunch. I want to wear sandals. I remember laughing so hard thinking, I just want to be normal. I want things to be like they used to be. And you know what? They aren't going to be what they used to be. And that's okay. I mean, you have to accept that life changes. And you have to keep moving with it. I think that it's an interesting thing, but at the same time, in those situations, like taking that day was important.
It was
very important. And I think that oftentimes we just don't give ourselves that grace. We just keep going until everything blows up.
And I look back while raising Peyton and Marlo, my husband is in the car business. So back then he worked every Saturday. So, I was in charge of all the activities. And I think back about that, and it's sometimes it's good you don't know what you're in the middle of because you just had to do it, and I had working hours that I knew my TV job starts here and it ends here.
And you got to leave it.
Yes. Yeah. So some time away from the kids made me a better mom. But I look back and I'm like, how did I do all that? Well, because I didn't have a choice. That's what you had to do.
And you were younger.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something to that. Yeah.
So this now, because we can work almost 24/7. Yeah, I needed last Wednesday, and that was a really, really good thing. So please give yourself permission. And even if you don't have something big going on, but you're just overwhelmed with life, just giving yourself a break. And
it's okay to set boundaries too. I think it's one of those things too. Like we are in a 24/7 world, but you know what? There are, and maybe we don't have normal working hours, but there are some things that you can say, after a certain time, I have to be down and out. Like, if it's 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock, whatever works that you can consistently, there's always going to be exceptions when there are things that need to happen. But like in general, what is kind of your time when you go, I'm going to be, I'm going to shut it down and get ready for bed? Because the other thing too, like one of the things that we're figuring out, it's kind of crazy. And part of what brought this all up is because I'm going through a program. I actually, between all that, the stress that I went through, I had a tremendous amount of cortisol in my system. I mean, I was just
which is produced because of stress.
And I was so swollen and just kind of, and it's sort of interesting. It sort of didn't go away quickly after all that. I mean, I'd been living kind of with that for years, and then kind of always waiting for the next shoe to drop, kind of a thing, and then went right into really working all the time. And then you just don't eat quite right. You don't get enough sleep.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big one, because I would get in bed, but then I would be answering emails, I would be texting, and then about 12:30 I go to sleep, and the dogs are up at 5, and I would be back up and running. Well, 4.5 hours day after day is not enough.
Right.
And so anyways, I went to the doctor. I just didn't feel great. And so I went to the doctor not too long ago, and I had terrible numbers. Like, it was really scary. My numbers were terrible. And I had always been on a borderline with my blood glucose, and it was high. And so I ended up going on a program. It's called Twin Health, which is through my insurance, but it's a separate company. And I wear a glucose monitor now.
Mm-hmm.
I have a scale that I get on every morning. I have to take my blood pressure every morning. Everything goes through an app. I put down everything that I eat. And I have reversed everything. It's crazy. Amazing. Like, in 45 days, my blood sugar is in a normal range. I take one pill but I've taken that for a while. For that, my blood pressure was getting, like, honestly, I went with Kristen. We were supposed to get something done at a health spa, and they wouldn't do it because I was just a little too high in my blood pressure number.
Oh, wow.
And that freaked me out. That was kind of right. And now I'm actually a little bit below normal consistently every day, all because of my eating. I mean, that's an exercise, but I mean, like, that's the only thing I've really changed.
Mm-hmm.
And it hasn't been that dramatic. It's just been taking the time, and this is the point of all this, is taking the time to take care of myself and my health.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's so easy to think, oh, I don't have time to do that. I got to keep going. Well, one of the things I realized is that when I eat chips and salsa, which I honestly used to eat chips and salsa every day,
mm-hmm.
and
yummy,
my blood sugar went through the roof on my glucose meter, and the realization, like, oh my God, was I killing myself by eating chips and salsa? I mean, and you just don't know what you don't know. And so, like, by taking that time, it has been a life changer. I mean, it's exciting. I've lost quite a bit of weight pretty quickly. And it's basically, I think they're trying to avoid giving everyone the Ozempic and the Wegovy. So I think they're spending the money. It's through my insurance, but they're spending the money to get you to figure out how to do it without doing those drugs, which for me, I would prefer.
Right.
I really would. I think they're tremendous drugs. I think they do a lot of good for a lot of people, but it's kind of the same thing, figuring out how to do it naturally if you can.
Mm-hmm.
Not that everybody can. So yeah, if anyone has any questions about that, if you have that issue, the insulin resistant issue that you just can't seem to get over, I would love to talk to you about it, because I honestly think that it could have saved me from a lot of terrible things, because the metabolic syndrome is a killer. It's literally a killer, and I just wasn't winning the battle anymore. So, and then I think even the way that it affected my mood, I just feel better. I want to do more. I'm
definitely, when you feel better, you think better. You're more positive.
Yeah. And like, you talk about vacation and how that's an important thing for you, and it gets you to recharge. I think, and that's probably a little limited with your mom some.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is like, so I think all those things, it's not that you can do everything all the time that you need to do, but you need to really be evaluating whenever you're struggling with something. What can I do for myself? I mean, why are we working so hard? I mean, why are we working so hard? It's not so that we can die and go, wow, we got those numbers.
Right.
I mean, no one's going to really care about your numbers once you're dead. They just aren't. And so caring about your numbers is a good business strategy to keep you motivated, but it is not a good life strategy that's the only thing that matters.
Right.
And then also going on social media and thinking over and over, why are they doing so well and I'm not? Now, I can tell you, honestly, that was a big problem for John.
Really?
That was a big problem for John. Yeah, I think that, and I think that that's something that, if that's something that you do, I mean, we all do a little bit of it. It's human
of
nature.
course.
It's human nature. But if you're obsessing about how everybody else seems to be doing great and you're not, and it's eating your lunch, you need to really do something about that. I think that whether it's checking out of social media, you can post.
I do that about twice a year,
Yeah.
and last week was one of them. I'm just like, I just need a break.
Yeah, and you can post and not play. Like that's the thing. You can post your listings, you can post your stuff. You don't have to always be scrolling. But yeah, I think that's just that's a big one. I think that's a big one, and I really do. I think, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I had to say, yeah, but whenever he would bring things up, with how other people were doing, and the sad thing was, it was usually when we were doing our best we'd ever done.
Yeah,
I mean, we were very high in the ratings and the rankings and all those things, but he still was like, it wasn't good enough, and it was, and I think there's so many issues that were at play there. But and I don't mean to in any way degrade him or his memory. I just think it's an important thing for people to hear, because I think that's an easy one. I just went to my high school reunion. That is interesting.
Yes.
I mean, it was interesting.
The same age,
and
I just went to mine
the people
too.
that I saw there that I loved, and I'm so excited to be there. But it's also funny because there were those guys that were kind of those guys, they're still those guys. They were, kind of giving me the side eye, whatever. I mean, it's like, you just go, I am not that person. I've been free of that for 40 years.
Yeah.
But it's just so funny how you can kind of sink back in. Like, it's like, we're all still, what is that in the movie, The Big, when he goes, you don't understand. I'm a 13-year-old boy trapped in a man's body, and Elizabeth Perkins goes, we are all 13-year-old children trapped in adult bodies.
Big, yes.
Yeah. So I mean, it's like, we're all 13-year-olds trapped in adult bodies. So it's like, we all have these insecurities. We all have these things. So, just give yourself grace. You're beautiful, and you deserve good things.
Yeah.
And you have different seasons.
When I was in the hospital with Mom, and she would be sleeping, I was like, okay, what am I going to do this is going to sound so superficial, but what can I do for me while I'm sitting here? And I started scrolling through Instagram makeup tutorials and hair tutorials, and completely ordered a bunch of new makeup, made me feel so much better.
There you go.
And so then when I had time, I was playing with, new hair bun, or, how to do a hair bun, or different way to do my eyeshadow or whatever. And it kind of sort of did what Netflix did. It just kind of took me out of me and doing a fun project that made me feel better.
Amen. I love that. And that's good for me now. It's the keto diet. Like, what's the newest keto diet thing? What's the, or what's the best sprinting routine, or all those things? Because it's like, all those things are what I'm trying to do and trying to accomplish. I mean, I think when you take it on and go, let's be excited about life, like, I'm excited to find out, like, at first it was sort of funny when I put my monitor on, and I was like, I went to the gym the first time, I was like, is everybody looking at me thinking, oh my God, and I'm like, who cares?
Yeah.
I mean, this is so cool to me. I've always wanted to know this, and now I'm getting to do it. I mean, it's funny, my mom was like, this is your dream, like, to get to do this, because I've always been sort of a wannabe biohacker. And so to get to actually see, oh, for my body, sweet potatoes are really not great. Like, and when I was doing the vegan thing, thinking I was doing the right thing, I was eating so many sweet potatoes, so many beans, so much rice. And all of those are heavy carb. And I'm sure my blood glucose was and that's why everyone else is getting like really healthy on a vegan diet. And I wasn't, because it just, my body is different. So, I mean, it is sort of interesting. It seems sort of superficial to go through all those things and to do that. But, that's kind of the point, isn't it? Is to be a fully developed human being so that we can go into the world and be interesting people.
And we've talked about this before. Being kind costs nothing, and you don't know what people are going through, and whether, you're a client or a friend or a frenemy or whatever, sometimes words hurt more than other times when you're unkind to someone. And I really have taken to heart when people have been mean over the last couple of months. And I finally had to, that's another thing I did on Wednesday, was just, what they're doing has nothing to do with me. But just remember, you can have a big effect on people that you don't even realize. And life is way too short. And my mom's reminding me of that.
And it's hard. I mean, it is difficult. Life is difficult. I mean, I don't think anyone was guaranteed a happy life. I mean, you're not guaranteed to be you're not going to be blissful all the time. You're not going to things. I mean, if you live a successful life, you're going to go through a lot of stuff, good and bad. I mean, that's part of being successful in life, is if you love enough, when you lose, it hurts. It's horrible.
Failure is a learning opportunity. Yeah.
And what was important to you 5 years ago may not be important to you anymore, and that's okay. I think that's the one thing I'm probably dealing with more than anything, is you know what? That was really important to me when that was my life. That is not my life anymore. That isn't that important to me anymore.
Right.
And accepting that. And it's okay, because now this is my life and I like my life, and I've gotten here because I have set this course. And so it's okay to say, I'm going to let that go. Mm-hmm. It's okay. And I think that's a hard thing too. And even, just aging, it's a trip, guys.
It is not for sissies.
It is hard. This aging thing is really crazy. When you look in the mirror, you're like, who are you? I mean, and then there's also okay, if this is what it is, I'm okay. It's like, I just think, but it's like having fun with it and not getting so bogged down in it. And then the other thing too is that whole idea of, we worry so much what other people think about us. And you know what other people think about us? They don't.
Yeah.
It's
really not all about you.
Yeah, Yeah. So I think I spent so much of my life, well, not really, I spent some of my life worrying about that. I kind of early on had to get over that pretty fast.
Yeah.
Which I think is a blessing. Where it's like, you know what, if you're not paying my rent, I don't really care.
Yeah.
But we all care a little bit. So
it took me a little while when I got into real estate and then was doing really well. And I would hear something somebody had said about my social media or whatever, and it really hurt. And then I was like, I'm not going to change what I'm doing because it's working. I'm educating people about real estate. So I'm not going to change. So I probably shouldn't care what you think.
Now it makes me think Kristen's show about Jackie Siegel, the Queen of Versailles. Whenever the reporter asked Jackie Siegel, so what do you think about when people are laughing at you? And she goes, I think, well, come on down and buy my ostrich pants at my wholesale and laugh all your way away. I was like, you just have to get to the point where you're like, and the big thing with her point is, hey, you're talking about me because you're laughing at me. So who cares? I mean, it's like you really do have to get to that point where you're secure enough. You're like, you're complaining because you're seeing me too much. Well, guess what? It's working because I want you to see me. So, or my business. So yeah, I don't know. It's like, it's interesting. Didn't you think at some point, at this point in your life and your age, you'd be so figured out?
Oh, yeah. I would have the keys to the universe.
Yeah. It's kind of cool, too, talking to my mom. She was 84. And, the realization that she's 84, she's kind of in the same place. We're still figuring it all out. We're still figuring out, well, what was that relationship? And what did that mean? And, it's also great because I'm able to really talk to her so openly and honestly. And hi, Mom. But it's like, we've had so many great conversations, and the realization is, no matter what age you are, it's okay to still be figuring it out.
Yeah.
And who you are. I mean, that's cool. I just think we all get so set in, this is who I am. And, there's a difference between a title and a personality.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that is something that, with all the influencer thing, it's easy to get lost on. Your personality is your personality. That's who you are. Whether you're a realtor, a preacher, a teacher, whatever, that's a title, but that does not make you your personality.
And that's one of the reasons why I wrote my book, Girlfriends 2.0, when I left TV news, because I literally was afraid somebody was going to walk up to me and say, didn't you used to be somebody? Didn't you used to do something important? But I identified with my job so much, because it wasn't like I was just on TV for, the 5 or 10 o'clock news. Every time I was at a restaurant, somebody was coming up and saying something, I like that story you did, or I hated that outfit you wore, whatever they decided to say. So I really was kind of living that title for 20 years. And who was I when that title went away?
That's so interesting. It's funny, because I was thinking the other day that it'd be really interesting to do a series of some kind on the search for relevancy. I feel like we all are searching for a way to stay relevant. And I think that it really comes down to that idea that we all just want to be seen and heard. And it's like, if I'm not seen and heard the way that I have always been seen and heard, then I don't exist anymore. I hear a lot of people talking about when you get older and you get like that, you become invisible. And I didn't understand that for a long time, and I get it a little bit more now. Like, there's almost a natural, the next generation sort of takes their place, and you sort of become the bit of more of a background supporter or reference. And it's a nice feeling because they come to you, but at the same time, it's kind of more their era that they're like, booming in. So it's like, have you lost relevancy? And is that more in the male female? Like, is there, I don't know. It's an interesting thing. I mean, I know my friends in the entertainment business, that's a real, because basically they make or not make their living based on whether people think they're relevant or not. So in the TV news world, that was the same thing.
Absolutely. People aren't watching, you're not relevant.
Yeah. But is that really just that, or is that just us in general? Like,
could be. And it could be. I feel like, because after that I owned my social media business and then went into transition to real estate. And I actually feel better about myself in this role than I have in the other, 56, 57 years. I really kind of feel like I'm figuring me out, but God has a great sense of humor. And, I think anytime you're kind of like, oh, I got this, then you kind of get, reminded that you don't really got it, but I appreciate your
which
confidence.
Is a blessing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because if not, we'd all be walking around puff, puff, puff.
Yeah. You know what? I love getting my ass kicked.
Yeah.
I do. I used to hate it. And now I love it because it's like, oh, okay, I can still learn. I mean, I think that it's, the one I always have said this, and I still believe this, my favorite thing on earth is to be underestimated. I love it because if you underestimate me, I will prove you wrong. What I had to start realizing
almost
is
for principle,
and that's what I had to start realizing is that, okay, you do that because that's what you want to do. Don't do it just in response and retaliation, because that's really not. But it's like, if somebody really, John and I faced a lot of challenges to get where we got in the time that we did, a lot. And that was kind of like, that was a high for us, because we're like, okay, we'll show you. And, and we did. Now, at what cost?
Right.
And I think that's where I'm having to reflect back on now. Now, I just said that out loud publicly, but I think that's what I've had to reflect back on is, okay, so look at that a little bit. I'm proud of it. I'm so proud of it, and I'll always be proud of it. But I think that it's like, everything is balance, and somewhere it got off balance, and so that's, I think, really what I wanted and what we wanted to really talk about today. We've made this whole point of get real. So occasionally, I think it's good for us just to get real. And
because things can look so good on a podcast or on social media. Of course, we're always putting our best foot forward and promoting real estate, but
we're people.
Yeah. And I'm not going to lie. I mean, I was just at an Alzheimer's cocktail party. It just burst into tears because it's watching someone go away in front of your eyes is extremely difficult. And she's gotten over the back part of it for the most part, but it's fast forwarded some other things. And it just literally, I'm just chugging along and this happens and I'm like, wait, what is important to me? And I probably never been more clear about that than I have been the last 6 months. I guess it's 6-ish months. But with that said, still have to perform for your clients, still have to bring your best. This is, their purchase,
Sure.
that you're helping them with. So,
and you want to.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, I think I'm clear about a lot of things over the last 6 months, but I'm also exhausted because there's just not a break. So last week was that chance for me.
And here's the other thing. I went through that with my dad. And the thing that I think you have to realize is that you're beginning to mourn before they're gone. And I think that's natural. I mean, I think you're slowly losing that person. Like we're talking about personality.
Mm-hmm.
That the person that used to, my dad always made me feel safe. It's so funny because everybody looked at my dad, and most people were so afraid of my dad. He was so gruff. But my dad was my protector, right? He was always going to protect me. And so that was like when you start seeing this person who is not understanding things like he used to, and was so smart, and he's no longer able to reason. It's very hard because it's like you're starting that mourning process, and then you feel bad for mourning somebody who's still here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And also selfish because, you're the baby and you want to be the baby still, right? And they're like suddenly they can't look at you that way.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm so sorry. And I know,
cancer is a horrible thing. Alzheimer's is a horrible thing. Yeah. I mean, they're just really.
And back to that whole thing we were talking about earlier, the one thing too is there is a lot of, diabetes and Alzheimer's are very linked.
Interesting.
And that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to get really good with all that, because like they're calling it diabetes 3. So wow. I don't know how relevant that is medically. I'm not somebody, but it's like, all of these things, we are learning so much, mm-hmm. and we're going to keep learning more, but it's like, that's just it is a scary thing, and how scary for them. Yeah. And I know.
She calls, probably 10 times a day, but called once already during our podcast. But, I try to pick up each and every time. So she knows that if I can't physically be there, if I'm working, then I'm at least going to be there for her to talk to. So anyway, we just, we were like, what are we going to talk about today? And this was just top of mind because.
And if you are out there and you are feeling any of this, you are not alone.
You're not alone.
It will get better.
And you shouldn't be alone.
No, you shouldn't.
You need people in your corner. I mean, I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't had my husband. I mean, he's been a very strong support of helping me get things done.
Yeah. And also in real estate, one of the things that we really try to do is when we have a partner or somebody that works with us that's going through these kind of things, try to really be a support system for them and help them get through it. Mm-hmm. And so, just make sure if you have somebody that's going through that you check and see if there's something you can do to help, because you're going to need that sometime too. I mean, it is.
We're all going to need that helping hand at some point, whether it's a health thing with ourselves, with one of our loved ones. It's just, it's going to happen.
Yeah. So anyway, if you're needing something, reach out.
Yeah.
Sure. So.
Yeah. Reach out to friends, reach out to professionals. If you have an employer that offers a counseling program, take advantage of that. Mm-hmm. My dad was a psychologist, so I'm big on having someone help you solve your problems.
And now you can do so much online too. It's really great.
Makes it so much better. Anyway, did not mean to tear up. Oh, well, thank you, Jack.
I think that's a reason to tear up. And you know what? The good news is that we are all in this together, and we're going to get through it. And that's what's most important.
And just be kind.
Be kind.
If you find yourself sitting around constantly talking about others, take a look at what's going on in your own life. Yeah.
Be grateful for every time you have joy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that's the one thing I'm really grateful for. Anytime I have joy, I really just sit in the joy.
Mm-hmm.
Amen
to that.
Because it comes and it goes.
And I'll only work with people that I like. I mean, that's because like when we do our podcast or I call you for advice, it's you're my friend, you know? So thank you for being a friend too.
Absolutely. I love you.
I love you too.
And it's going to be better.
It is. It is.
You're going to have some hard days.
Yep. So.
But you got it.
Yeah. And I don't want my clients to know anything different that, you know, my personal life has nothing to do with what's going on with them. So.
And that's the thing too. Like that's the thing is important. You know, it's sometimes it is hard to talk about it sometimes like this, and it's very brave because you don't want people to think that your eye isn't on the ball. It's kind of amazing because honestly, I think you're like I am. My eye's actually more on the ball when I'm going through those things because it's like I will take my brain off of it. Yeah. So if there's a client of Cindy's out there that is understand that, like there's a hyper focus that goes into it in these times. So,
yeah, for sure.
And I have her back too.
Thank you. I have your back as
well. We'll make sure everything works. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Have a good day.
Bye.